quite often when you're out and about and you go to a particular site, or it might be one little area within a site, maybe a length of mature hedgerow such as the one behind me, and you stand at it and you think, so and so must be here, it just has to be here, it's perfect for it here. Turns out that it's not there after all, and that your hopes had been dashed. Well, this is about the fourth time that I've walked along this particular hedgerow, or I'm about to walk along this particular hedgerow, and I'm looking for the larval webs of small eggar. There hasn't been any in it, and it's perfect, absolutely perfect for the larval webs and as a breeding ground for small eggar. Small eggar has done remarkably well again this spring in Nottinghamshire, much in the same way as it did last year, and a small group of us have been going around and making note of the larval webs that we've found, and those others being Sharon Wilson and Nick and Samantha Brownlee and myself. So far we've managed just over 50 larval webs, and we have added new grid squares to the existing map, but it's been an interesting process looking for these webs. Some haven't appeared in the same areas they did last year, and others have appeared in totally new areas, and there's been more instances of multiple larval webs along a straight stretch of hedgerow than we had in 2025, but it has done remarkably well. I'm hoping it's done remarkably well enough for me to find one along there, because it has turned up at Eggaring Flash just half a mile from where I'm stood, and all the years that I've been looking for it, and it's never turned up before, but Nick and Samantha Brownlee also found it at two other places in my old recording area. So I'm going to walk along here, see if I can turn it up. It's got to turn up at some time. It's got to be here. It has to be here, it must be here. But will it be here? Well, it's not here, despite this being the perfect small eggar habitat. If you're wishing to attract small eggar to your area of farmland or nature reserve, take a photo of this habitat here, because this is the ideal habitat. Even though it's not here, but say over the last couple of weeks, a group of us have been surveying for the larval webs over a broad area of Nottinghamshire, and we've been very successful too. The larval webs have again been in the same general area as we found them back in 2025, but efforts to find them down in South Nottinghamshire and North and Northeast Nottinghamshire have failed miserably. The moth range seems to be restricted to around Retford and down to Southall, but not beyond Southall really. I'm sure it remains to be found elsewhere, especially in South Nottinghamshire, maybe around Eastleigh. There could be larval webs. That is one of its historical haunts over 100 years ago. But this video is a compilation of clips from my wanderings around Nottinghamshire looking for larval webs of the small eggar. Well, here's our first larval web of this video, and this is at the side of the A616 near the crossroads at Kersal. These larvae are slightly less well developed than those we've seen in the last video, and these are certainly third instar. So a nice little start. I'm heading towards Newark, maybe to Sutton-on-Trent, to Ingram Lane, but nice to see these. or so far along a rather breezy Ingram Lane. No sign of any small egger. Lots of webs of orchard ermine, but no small egger. I have, however, found these, and amazingly just put out a video about finding an egg batch of emperor moth. That's amazing. You go all your life and not seeing an emperor moth egg batch, and then you find two within a week. Well, success right at the very end of Ingram Lane, right where the Ingram Lane runs over the river. And I'd gone round, there's a large, almost copse of blackthorn with lots of blackthorn suckering growth like this. And I'd gone right around it, no sign, started to walk back down the road and found these. I'm so pleased to have found these. It's reward for effort, I suppose, because I've been coming here for several years and I've been successful in most of those years, but for the last 2 years, including the bumper year of 2025, none here at all on Ingram's Lane. So I'm very, very pleased. Well, another day and another larval web. As you can see, this one is about 6 foot or so off the ground. Larva of third instar, and again less well developed than those that are found the other day in the Laxton area. This is right at the side of Eaton and Gamston Woods, pretty much equal between the two. And I have been able to locate the egg batch for the first time of these moths. And the reason I've never found it before is because it's always been webbed over. But if I just pull the larval web down, you can see there's the caterpillars there. Look, the egg batch is here. I can feel the eggs underneath this silk, and they've obviously eaten up here first and then gone past the egg batch, and now you can see where the main web is, and quite typically it's at the joint of a number of branches. It's one thing with having an interest in entomology is that every day can bring new excitement. New excitement for me here in the form of small egger. So why are you excited, you're all asking? Well, I've seen lots of small egger webs, very fortunate to do so. And I'd always wanted to get one on the local patch, which they have been seen in the Eggaring area, but this one is in a hedgerow north between Eggaring Flash and Lound Wood, and it's the first one I've found. I've trod these hedges for years and years, not always looking for these, but if they'd been here I would have found them. And here is a young larval web with what looks to be second or third instar larva on it. It's quite a small web, and it's the most perfect web. I was just looking as I was walking around and thinking to myself, this hedge is absolutely perfect, and there's lots of blackthorn regrowth in the set aside strip here. I thought it's ideal, and then I noticed this just sticking up, but the light wasn't very good, but here we are. We have a second small egger larval web, and it's very nearly the opposite side of the hedge to the one we've just looked at. Big difference though, uncut hedge the other side, cut hedge this side, but brilliant. Well, here's one of 4 larval webs on a strip of young hedgerow at Wellow, and this is where I had 2 larval webs in 2025, but I found one yesterday on the 9th of May, and I've just come past again and I've found another 3. And here's another very early web on hawthorn again, with second install larva in, all within about 5-6 yards of each other. It's very breezy today, and I'm just outside the village of Curtin on the Curtin to Tuxford road. Last year I found 2 larval webs along that road. Not seen anything this year, but it is difficult to search for larval webs while in driving at sort of 50 miles an hour. However, just outside Curtin is a minor road which goes down towards Bevercoats Colliery, and as you can see, the road verge on this little minor road is full of blackthorn regrowth. It was last year, and I parked up in the little lay-by down at the end there and thought to myself, well, there's going to be no problem finding small egger larval web in this bit. Well, there was, because last year I didn't find any, and this year there still isn't one, apart from one right at the side of the lay-by. There's all this luxurious blackthorn regrowth, and yet that female chose probably the weediest and sparsest little bit of blackthorn she could lay on. However, there's a great and well-developed group of larvae in their larval web right at the side of the car. Well, I'm out and about again looking for more small egger larval webs. It's a bit breezy today, but I've been successful in my travels finding larval webs near the villages of Upton and East Drayton, and then this one here just outside Curtin, and it's very low to the ground. In fact, I've parked at the side of it because it's in a small lay-by, and these are the most mature caterpillars that I've found so far. These are all 4th instar, soon to molt into final instar. We have a saying in the UK that it's a bit black over Bill's mothers, which basically means there's some black clouds coming, in this instance from Maplebeck, the village to my right. I'm going to get wet, but I have found another larval web of the small egger. It's the 19th of May today, and we continue to stride forward in the quest to try and find as many larval webs as possible, and to increase the range, or the known range, of the small egger in Nottinghamshire, which is being done. This moth is still only present in hedgerows in the eastern side of Nottinghamshire, but not all of it. We have no records of larval webs of small egger to the west of the A614, which seems very strange, but there is another one behind me here. Well, the larval web is more or less centre of the screen, directly above the grass verge. It's a good 15 feet off the floor here, not particularly large, but the larvae are late 3rd instar, possibly molting into 4th instar. You may be able to make out where they've eaten most of the leaves on this particular blackthorn. It's unusual in its height off the ground, but there's another one to add to the total for this year, which is standing at over 50 now. Well, last year I had a couple of larval webs in this stretch of hedgerow just outside Eggaring Meadows, which is the other side of the road. The hedge has been cut but trimmed up the side. The top has been left for the hedge to grow, and thankfully small eggers aren't particularly fussy in their choice of egg laying site. They do seem to prefer the younger sort of 2 to 3 year old suckering growth that you get coming away from any blackthorn stands or blackthorn hedgerows. That's their ideal choice of location, but they will lay on the hedge, and they will even lay towards the top of freshly flailed hedges that have been cut to within an inch of their life. But they'll also use this higher growth occasionally too. But the question is, why has the moth all of a sudden appeared to be doing so well? But has it just only been in this last 2 years that it's done so well? I'm beginning to doubt that now. Well, this is a fairly typical site for a larval web and a small egger. This hedge isn't flailed aggressively, it's just cut in the traditional manner of modern farming, but it is cut annually, and obviously this larval web sits nicely at the top. It's on blackthorn, but you can get larval webs on hedges that are much more aggressively cut than this. So you can see from this larval web at the top of the hedge here to my right just where the moth can turn up, or the larva of the small egger can turn up. But I wonder now whether, and I'm talking not specifically here, whether it's just been completely overlooked. The only nature reserve that any larval web has been found on is across the road here at Eggaring Meadows, and to be honest, I'm the only one that's really trod that, and that's since 1997. It didn't occur here, even though looked for over many years, until 2025. But the webs that we're finding in Nottinghamshire are really on your average run-of-the-mill rural lanes, nowhere particularly special. They're not on nature reserves, largely because nature reserves don't have these things, hedgerows, and hedgerows are the key thing, certainly in looking for the larval webs of the small egger. I think that people have probably driven past them for many years, and though proving that is difficult, because before 2025 the only records that we'd got of the small egger in Nottinghamshire were from Sutton-on-Trent and a couple of other isolated occurrences. Well, this is Eggaring Meadows. This is just part of Eggaring Meadows. You can see it's a sea of golden yellow buttercups. But just across, just left of centre, there's a large stand of blackthorn, and on that stand of blackthorn last year there was a larval web of small egger. There's a couple of other little spots that I want to check in here. There's another stand of blackthorn off screen to my left, and I haven't walked this site yet, but despite the very wet grass, today is the day. Hopefully we'll get another larval web here. No sign of any larval webs on these two stands of blackthorn, the one that I showed you a couple of clips ago, and this one here. Both ideal, you would think, for small eggers to lay on. Why they choose to largely ignore stands like this and go to a roadside hedge, I don't know. Maybe hedgerows are more representative of scrub, and that's the kind of site that they would choose naturally. I don't know. One thing, when you study one species or record one species a lot, and over a number of years, you learn more about them and views change. You think you've sort of got the angle right on one particular species, and then it surprises you. We did exactly the same thing years ago, did it myself with glowworms. You thought you knew it, and then all of a sudden something changes your mind and alters your perception of that species. And that certainly happens with the small egger with me here. I find it fascinating how species ranges vary from year to year. But what I am asking myself now is, has the moth already been here for a number of years? In the terms of Eggaring meadows and the Eggaring area, no, because I covered it since 1997 right up to 2012, and ever since then. I know it's new to this area, but is it new to the rest of the sites that we've had it locally in Nottinghamshire? I'm still not convinced that it is, that this is a sudden outbreak or a range expansion. I'm beginning to think now that perhaps more likely than not, this is the range of the small egger, and that what we found in 2025 weren't new sites in terms of the moth's occurrence, only new to us as recorders. Quite often it's not until somebody finds something that somebody else is alerted and thinks, I'll go and have a look for that, and then they find it. And that's certainly how it's worked with a number of species, but certainly with the small egger. The mystery of its apparent resurgence is still that, a mystery at the moment, and my view may well change several times over the coming years. Probably change again this year, because we're only halfway through May.